Hey everyone! In this video, we are going to be working through some examples of completing the square, and this is part one, so we'll start with some easy difficulty ones. So I'm going to go ahead and put up a quadratic here in standard form, so x squared plus 10x plus 25, and the goal of completing the square is to try and make a perfect square. Perfect square, that's when we factor quadratic and we get the same factor twice. There's a reason why I started off by putting up x squared plus 10x plus 25, because that is a perfect square. It's because if I do the sum and product, I'll get 5 plus 5 equals 10, and 5 times 5 is 25. So we get the same factor twice, so we can actually write it as an x plus 5 squared. I can do one more here nice and quick. Another perfect square would be x squared plus 8x plus 16. We know it's a perfect square because the same number adds to give the number in front of the x as is the square root of the end. So it's a 4 and a 4, because 4 plus 4 is 8, and 4 times 4 is 16, which means that that perfect square is x plus 4 squared. Let's go ahead and do an example of completing the square. So this time we're going to put one up that's not a perfect square. X squared plus 8x plus 19. Oh, we wanted that to be a 16. We didn't want that 19. So what we're going to do is we're just going to fire that 19 over. We're going to get rid of it, and we're going to replace it with what we actually want. I'm just going to put a blank here for what we actually want, and we chuck that 19 over to the side. But we can't just add any number we want. Whatever you add, you're going to have to subtract it as well in order to keep the whole thing equal. What number do we wish was there? Well, what we're going to want is whatever's half of the number in front of x, because whatever number is in front of the x, the same number has to add to be it, and then squared. In this case, half of that 8 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So what we're left with now is a perfect square. We're trying to make a perfect square. And we did, which is one of the examples that we did on the side, because that perfect square is x plus 4 squared. We just have to clean up whatever's left over, which was a 19 minus 16, and we're left with a plus 3. We're going to work through another example here so that you can get to see this in action. So example number 2, we're going to put up another quadratic in standard form, x squared minus 12x plus 21. Not a perfect square, so the first thing we do is chuck that c value over, get rid of it, and we're going to try and decide what we wish was there so that this had been a perfect square. So that 21 is chucked to the side. Whatever we add, we're going to have to subtract. The number that goes there is always half of the number that's in front of the x squared. Half of negative 12 is negative 6. Negative 6 squared is 36. Because we just added 36, we have to subtract a 36. Now, those first three terms are a perfect square. We can bust that down, crunch that down to a perfect square. That's always half of the number that's in front of the x. So it was a minus 12x, so it becomes an x minus 6. And we clean up whatever is left over outside. One more example. In example number 3, we have x squared plus 7x plus 15. Not a perfect square. We want to make it a perfect square. Just like before, we take that c value, we chuck that right over. We're left with x squared plus 7x plus what we wish was there, plus our 15, subtract whatever we add. The number that we put in that blank has to be half of the number that's in front of the x squared. It's not nice, but half of 7 is 3.5. And we can square 3.5 because 3.5 squared is 12.25. Because we added a 12.25, we have to subtract a 12.25. We're now left with a perfect square. It's going to be x plus half of the number that's in front of the x. In this case, an x plus 3.5. We square it, we clean up whatever's left over on the outside. 2.75. And this is how we do completing the square. These were 3 easier examples. We'll look at some trickier ones next time where we put some numbers in front of x squared. But I hope that this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you very much.